The woman waited until the funeral was over. Not during the service. Not while my daughter was crying into my shoulder. Not while people stood around sharing stories about my husband. She waited until the last mourner had left the cemetery. Then she walked straight toward me. I still remember the sound of her heels crunching against the gravel. I was standing beside my husband's grave, staring at the fresh dirt covering the coffin that held the man I'd loved for 27 years. My name is Emily Carter. 3 days earlier, my husband Daniel had died in a highway accident. One moment he was driving home from a business trip. The next moment, a drunk driver crossed the median. And my entire life shattered. I thought the worst pain imaginable was burying the love of your life. I was wrong. Because the woman stopped in front of me, opened her trembling hand, and placed a gold wedding ring in my palm. Not Daniel's ring. Another ring. A second wedding ring. Then she whispered 6 words that nearly stopped my heart. He wore this when he was with me. For a second, the world went silent. The wind. The birds. Even my own breathing. Gone. I stared at the ring. Then at her. Then back at the ring. My fingers shook so violently I almost dropped it. What did you say? Tears filled her eyes. The woman looked about 50. Dark hair. Pale skin. A sadness so deep it looked permanent. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry. My chest tightened. No. I took a step backward. No. She nodded slowly. As God is my witness, I never wanted you to find out this way. My knees nearly buckled. I looked toward Daniel's grave. Then back at her. What are you talking about? The woman wiped her eyes. My name is Rebecca. Silence. I was married to Daniel too. The ring slipped from my fingers. It landed in the dirt beside the grave. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process the words. 27 years. 27 years of marriage. 2 children. Thousands of memories. And suddenly a stranger was telling me my husband had another wife. I laughed. Actually laughed. The kind of laugh people make when reality becomes too horrible to accept. You're lying. I wish I was. You're sick. Her face crumpled. No. Get away from me. Emily. Get away from me. My voice echoed across the cemetery. Rebecca flinched. For a moment I thought she'd argue. Instead, she reached into her purse. Pulled out a photograph. And handed it to me. My blood turned cold. Because the man standing beside her in that photograph was Daniel. My husband. Wearing a suit I'd bought him 6 years earlier. His arm around her shoulders. Both of them smiling. The picture fell from my hands. I felt like I might faint. This isn't possible. Rebecca was crying openly now. I know. No. I backed away again. This is fake. It isn't. It has to be. She looked toward Daniel's grave. Then whispered something that shattered me even more. He talked about you all the time. I froze. What? He loved you. The words made no sense. If he loved me, then why was she here? Why did she have a wedding ring? Why did she have photographs? Why did she look as broken as I felt? Nothing fit together. Nothing. Before I could speak again, my daughter Sarah appeared beside me. Mom? She had been walking back from the parking lot. The moment she saw my face, she rushed over. Mom, what's wrong? I couldn't answer. Rebecca quietly picked up the photograph from the ground. Sarah noticed. Then noticed the ring. Then noticed Rebecca. Confusion filled her face. Who is this? Nobody answered. Sarah looked at me. Then at Rebecca. Then at the photograph. And suddenly all the color drained from her face. Because she recognized Daniel instantly. Oh my God. Rebecca lowered her head. I'm sorry. Sarah grabbed the photo. Her hand started shaking. What is this? No one spoke. The silence told her everything. The photograph slipped from her fingers. No. Tears instantly filled her eyes. No. I wanted to comfort my daughter. Instead, I felt frozen. Like my soul had left my body. Rebecca slowly stepped backward. I didn't come here to hurt you. I finally found my voice. Then why are you here? She hesitated. Fear flashed across her face. Real fear. The kind people have when they're carrying something terrible. Then she whispered words that made my stomach drop. Because there's something even worse you don't know. The cemetery suddenly felt colder. What? Rebecca looked around nervously. As if she was afraid someone might hear. Then she said. Daniel wasn't hiding a second marriage. My mind spun. What? Her eyes filled with tears again. He was hiding someone. A chill ran down my spine. Someone? Who? Before I could ask another question, Rebecca reached into her purse and handed me a folded piece of paper. My name was written on the front. In Daniel's handwriting. My heart stopped. Because beneath my name were 5 words. If anything happens to me. I stared at the note. Then looked up. But Rebecca was already walking away. Wait. She didn't stop. Rebecca. She turned once. Her eyes filled with heartbreak. Then she said something that haunted me long after she disappeared. Read the letter before you hate him. And then she was gone. Leaving me standing beside my husband's grave. Holding a second wedding ring. A photograph. And a letter that might destroy everything I thought I knew about the man I'd buried. I didn't know it yet. But when I opened that letter later that night, I would discover that Daniel's biggest secret wasn't another wife. It was a child. And the truth behind that child would change my entire life. I stared at the letter for nearly 2 hours before I finally opened it. The house felt painfully empty. No television. No music. No Daniel. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes every memory louder. Sarah sat across from me at the kitchen table. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Neither of us had spoken much since leaving the cemetery. The folded paper rested between us like a bomb waiting to explode. Finally, Sarah whispered. Mom. I looked up. You have to read it. My hands trembled. Part of me wanted to burn it. Part of me wanted answers. Answers 1. I slowly unfolded the paper. Immediately, I recognized Daniel's handwriting. My chest tightened. The first line almost made me stop breathing. Emily. If you're reading this, then I've run out of time. Sarah covered her mouth. I kept reading. There's something I should have told you years ago. I wanted to. 1,000 times I wanted to. But every time I tried, I became a coward. Tears blurred the words. Because I could hear Daniel's voice in every sentence. 28 years ago, before I met you, I was engaged to a woman named Rebecca. I froze. Sarah looked at me. Oh my God. I continued. We were young. We were in love. We planned a future together. Then one night everything changed. I swallowed hard. Rebecca disappeared. No explanation. No goodbye. Nothing. I searched for months. Then years. Eventually I believed she had chosen someone else. My heart pounded. This wasn't sounding like a second marriage. It sounded like something else. Something worse. The next paragraph answered part of it. 5 years later I met you. You saved my life, Emily. You taught me how to love again. Everything after that was real. Every anniversary. Every birthday. Every laugh. Every struggle. Every moment. I loved you with everything I had. A tear rolled down my cheek. Then I reached the next line. And my world tilted. 3 years ago Rebecca came back. Sarah gasped. I couldn't move. 3 years ago. Not 20. Not 10. 3. Daniel continued. She didn't leave me willingly. Her father forced her to move overseas after discovering she was pregnant. The room spun. Pregnant. Pregnant. I read the sentence again. And again. And again. My hand started shaking. Sarah whispered. No. I couldn't answer. My eyes moved to the next paragraph. Rebecca gave birth to a son. His name is Michael. For 28 years I never knew he existed. The paper slipped slightly in my hands. A son. Daniel had a son. A child he never knew about. A child I'd never heard about. A child who had been alive for almost 3 decades. My chest hurt. Not from betrayal. From confusion. How could anyone keep something like this secret? The letter continued. 3 years ago Michael was diagnosed with kidney failure. Doctors told him he needed a transplant. Rebecca finally told him who his father was. Sarah was openly crying now. I wasn't far behind. I kept reading. Michael found me. Emily. I wish I could explain what it felt like when a grown man looked at me and called me Dad for the first time. I closed my eyes. Daniel had never mentioned any of this. Not once. The letter continued. Michael didn't want money. He didn't want revenge. He only wanted to know me before it was too late. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Too painful. Then came the sentence that shattered everything. I was a match for his kidney transplant. My hand flew to my mouth. Oh my God. Sarah stared at me. What? I could barely speak. Your father donated a kidney. Her eyes widened. I showed her the letter. She read the line herself. Then burst into tears. Neither of us spoke for nearly a minute. Suddenly all the missing pieces started appearing. The business trips. The unexplained absences. The private phone calls. The strange hospital charges I'd noticed months ago. The exhaustion. The weight loss. The constant fatigue. I had assumed grief from work. It wasn't. Daniel had undergone major surgery. And hidden it. The letter continued. I wanted to tell you everything. But Michael begged me not to. He was ashamed of how his life began. He was terrified of destroying our family. I felt sick. Not because Daniel had lied. Because I suddenly understood why. He'd been trapped. Trying to protect everyone. And hurting himself in the process. But then I reached the final page. And my stomach dropped. Because the story wasn't over. Not even close. Emily, if you're reading this, there's one more thing. The room felt colder. My heart pounded. Michael's transplant failed. I froze. No. 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 I kept reading. The kidney gave him more time, but not enough. Doctors believe he has less than a year. The tears came instantly. Sarah was crying too. The words became difficult to see. Rebecca and Michael asked me not to tell you because they didn't want our family carrying their burden. I promised them I wouldn't. And now I regret that promise every day. I love you. I love Sarah. I love Tyler. And I love Michael too. I wish I'd been brave enough to tell the truth sooner. The letter ended there. No dramatic confession. No hidden affair. No second marriage. Just a frightened man trying to love everyone at once. I lowered the pages. The kitchen was silent. Sarah wiped her eyes. What do we do now? I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I would have ignored it. Something told me not to. I answered. Hello? Several seconds passed. Then a man's voice spoke. A voice I'd never heard before. Quiet. Nervous. Emotional. Mrs. Carter? My heart stopped. Yes. A long silence followed. Then he whispered. My name is Michael. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Because the man on the phone wasn't calling to introduce himself. He was calling because Rebecca had collapsed an hour earlier. And what he said next would force me to make the hardest decision of my life. Mrs. Carter? My grip tightened around the phone. Yes. The man's breathing sounded uneven. Like he had been crying. My mom collapsed. I immediately sat upright. What happened? The doctors think it was a stroke. My heart sank. Across the table, Sarah watched my face closely. Something must have changed in my expression because she whispered. What is it? I couldn't answer. Michael continued. She's stable right now, but... His voice cracked. But what? They found something else. Silence. The kind that warns you before bad news arrives. Michael? They found cancer. I closed my eyes. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then I heard him quietly crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just the exhausted crying of someone who had already suffered too much. I'm sorry, I whispered. I don't know what to do. Those words broke me. Because suddenly he didn't sound like a stranger. He sounded like a frightened little boy. A little boy who had spent 28 years without his father. And now he was losing his mother too. Which hospital? I asked. He hesitated. Why? I looked at Sarah. Then at Daniel's letter. Then at the empty chair where my husband should have been sitting. Because nobody should go through this alone. The silence that followed felt endless. Then Michael began crying harder. And for the first time, he called me family. Thank you. 3 hours later, Sarah and I walked into St. Mary's Hospital. The moment I stepped off the elevator, I saw him. Michael. He looked exactly like Daniel. Not similar. Not close. Exactly. Same eyes. Same smile. Same posture. It felt like seeing a younger version of my husband standing in front of me. For a second, neither of us moved. Neither of us knew what to say. Then Michael laughed through tears. My mom said that would happen. What? She said when you saw me, you'd forget how to breathe. A surprised laugh escaped me. The first laugh I'd managed since Daniel died. And somehow that made me cry. Michael crossed the room. Then stopped. Unsure. Awkward. Lost. We were strangers connected by the same man. Finally, I stepped forward and hugged him. He completely froze. Then hugged me back. And suddenly we were both crying. Not because we knew each other. Because we both loved the same person. Rebecca's hospital room was quiet. Machines beeped softly. She looked weaker than she had at the funeral. But when she saw me enter, she started crying immediately. I didn't expect you. I pulled a chair beside her bed. You handed me a wedding ring at a funeral. A weak smile appeared. Fair point. For the first time, some of the tension disappeared. Rebecca wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. I shook my head. No. Emily. I know everything. Her face crumpled. The guilt she'd been carrying for years became visible. I never wanted to hurt you. I know. I never wanted Daniel to choose. That sentence caught my attention. Choose? Rebecca looked toward the window. There was a moment. My stomach tightened. What moment? She stared at her hands. When Michael found Daniel. The room became silent. Rebecca continued. He was angry. I frowned. Angry? He'd grown up believing his father abandoned him. My chest hurt. Of course he had. How else could he feel? Michael told Daniel he hated him. Tears filled her eyes. He said 28 years was too late. I looked toward the hallway where Michael was sitting. The thought of Daniel hearing those words broke my heart. Rebecca continued. Daniel didn't defend himself. What did he do? A small smile appeared. He apologized. I felt tears rising again. He apologized for every birthday he missed. Every Christmas. Every graduation. Every moment he didn't even know existed. The room went quiet. Then Rebecca whispered something I'll never forget. He spent 3 years trying to earn a son he never stopped loving. I couldn't speak. Because that sounded exactly like Daniel. Weeks passed. Then months. Life slowly settled into something new. Something unexpected. Rebecca began treatment. Michael continued dialysis. Sarah and Tyler got to know their half-brother. At first it felt awkward. Then natural. Then normal. Soon family dinners included an extra chair. Then two stories emerged. Old photographs appeared. Memories were shared. And somehow, despite the tragedy, our family grew. One Sunday afternoon, nearly 6 months after Daniel's death, we gathered for a barbecue in my backyard. The same backyard where Daniel had spent years grilling burgers and embarrassing our children with terrible jokes. The weather was perfect. For the first time in a long while, the house felt alive again. Tyler was arguing with Michael over baseball. Sarah was helping Rebecca arrange food on the patio table. Laughter filled the air. Real laughter. Not forced. Not polite. Genuine. I stepped inside for a moment and found myself staring at a framed photograph of Daniel. The one from our 25th anniversary. I smiled. Then heard footsteps behind me. Michael. He stood beside me looking at the picture. Dad hated cameras. I laughed. He complained during every family photo. Michael smiled. For a few seconds we simply stood there. Then he said something softly. Something that nearly brought me to tears. I wish I'd had more time with him. I nodded. So do I. The room fell quiet. Then Michael looked at the photograph. And whispered. But he gave me enough. I turned toward him. What do you mean? His eyes filled with emotion. He gave me a chance to know who I came from. He swallowed hard. And he gave me all of you. At that moment, I realized something. Daniel's greatest secret had never been another wife. It had never been a second wedding ring. It had never been hidden photographs or buried lies. His greatest secret was love. Messy. Complicated. Painful. Human love. The kind that stretches farther than fear. The kind that survives mistakes. The kind that creates family where nobody expected it. A year later, Rebecca's treatment was working. Michael received another transplant. This time, it succeeded. And on the anniversary of Daniel's death, all of us visited his grave together. Not divided. Not angry. Together. Sarah placed flowers beside the headstone. Tyler shared a story that made everyone laugh. Rebecca stood quietly holding Michael's arm. And as we prepared to leave, Michael touched the stone gently. Then smiled. Thank you, Dad. Tears filled my eyes. Because in the end, Daniel never got the chance to fully live both lives. But through the people he loved, those lives became one. And standing there beside his grave, surrounded by the family he unknowingly brought together, I finally understood something. Love isn't measured by how perfectly we live. It's measured by how deeply we leave ourselves in the hearts of others. And Daniel Carter left enough love behind to heal an entire family.